Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest movie news in the last week of movies and news. We have a lot to talk about today, some pretty monumental shifts, major moves being made, hierarchies of power are changing actually this time, not in the way that The Rock intended, but they are changing. So let's just jump right into it, honestly. So first up, we got some trailers. Well, actually, we actually only have one trailer this week to talk about, but we have a pretty good one. It is the trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Here's the thing. This trailer looks objectively great. I mean, it looks really good. But if I'm going to be critical, it's not... At this point, I kind of want like an official trailer. I mean, they call it an official trailer, but this is really more of a teaser. I would argue I actually kind of liked the original initial teaser that we got more, because we kind of got to see, like, I don't know, I like the scene with Gwen in Miles Morales' room a little more than this. That being said, I mean, that's a nitpick. This movie looks great. I absolutely cannot wait. The first movie is one of my favorite animated movies of all time. My favorite Spider-Man movie, definitely. And yeah, I mean, I love the emotion with Miles and his mom. I love that monologue, that speech that she gave him. All the different Spider-Men look absolutely insane. Just how they're going to balance all of that looks so interesting. And I don't know. I don't know much about Spider-Man 2099. I've only ever played as him in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. You remember that game? That's pretty much the extent of the experience I have with that character. But yeah, him being the villain seemingly is really interesting. I really hope there isn't some kind of controversy where fans of Spider-Man 2099 are all like, "Oh, you can't make him a bad guy." Blah. I hope that doesn't turn into a thing. I don't think it will, but we've seen things like that in the past. But yeah, I mean, the animation looks beautiful. I absolutely cannot freaking wait. All right, let's get into some of these articles. So, first up, Netflix is making a My Hero Academia live-action movie from Legendary. So, I guess Legendary bought the rights to My Hero Academia, and they've been shopping it around, and they're going to end up doing it on Netflix. So, I guess I don't know anything about My Hero Academia. I think, from what I understand, and I could be wrong about this, but I think it's kind of like an X-Men kind of thing. I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. But I think it's definitely, it feels kind of, I think it's like a superhero kind of thing. But I've never seen it. Now, I guess anime viewers and fans of My Hero Academia are probably worried because it's from Netflix, and Netflix hasn't exactly treated anime very well. Granted, I've never seen any of that content, but the fans are not happy. And it looks like it's being written by this guy named Joby Harold, he's penning the screenplay, it says here in this Hollywood Reporter article. And this guy wrote Obi-Wan Kenobi and Army of the Dead. Two properties that are not especially good. I mean, I think I didn't hate Obi-Wan Kenobi. Actually, I enjoyed it for what it was. Definitely not great, though. Army of the Dead is terrible. I hate that movie. So, I don't know. We'll see what comes from this, but it's probably not going to be good. All right, next up. We have our first look at Joker 2, The Jokering. Actually, no, it's called Joker Folie Deux. I think that's... what was it? I think it's French for falling mad, going mad together, going crazy together, because I think it's kind of speaking to Joker and Harley going crazy together. I don't know. But this picture, I mean, it looks like Joker. You know, got Joaquin Phoenix looking in like he's in really bad shape. And it looks like there's like an Arkham security guard shaving him, I guess. I don't know. Yep, it looks like more Joker. So we'll see what comes from this movie. The Joker's one of those movies that I quite enjoyed, but I think served well just being a standalone movie. I don't think the movie was really asking for a sequel. But of course, you make $1 billion. Of course, they're going to go back and do a second one. I mean, it's just how could you not? How could you possibly justify as like a studio? How could you possibly justify to all of your investors and stockholders of like, oh yeah, you know that movie that made $1 billion? We're just gonna not do a sequel to it. We're not gonna do any more of it. Yeah, of course they're gonna do more. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it's good. All right, next up, it looks like God of War is getting a TV series at Amazon. I mean, we knew that this was in the works, but it's officially been greenlit. So apparently it's gonna be show ran by this guy named Rafe Judkins. He is from Wheel of Time. Now, I've not seen Wheel of Time, but I've heard mixed things about it, so I'm not sure about that. But apparently it's being written by Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby, and those guys are I guess they wrote The Expanse, and they're writing and executive producing the series with Judkins. So I think overall we should probably feel a bit optimistic about this, because I do think that Amazon has a pretty good track record with their series. I mean, you know, people will talk about Rings of Power. I enjoyed Rings of Power for what it was, but I really enjoy, you know, like The Boys and Invincible, and, you know, I haven't watched The Expanse, but The Expanse is supposed to be, like, amazing. Really like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So, I mean, Amazon does have a pretty good track record. Now, the weird thing about this is that when we go a bit further in this article, it says here, okay, the series in development since March will follow Kratos, the god of war, who exiles himself from his blood-soaked past in ancient Greece and hangs up his weapons forever in the Norse realm of Midgard. When his beloved wife dies, the show's description reads, Kratos sets off on a dangerous journey with his estranged son to spread her ashes from the highest peak, his wife's final wish. Kratos soon realizes the journey is an epic quest in disguise, one which will test the bonds between father and son, and force Kratos to battle new gods and monsters for the fate of the world. They're doing the 2018 game, and that's just kind of weird to me. I mean, I get why you would want to do it, because the story in the first 3 God of War games that are set in Greece aren't really all that interesting or well made. Like, it wasn't really until the 2018 game that they decided to, like, kind of, you know, take inspiration from Naughty Dog and make, like, this really incredible cinematic and engaging story. So I get that there's more to mine from the 2018 game, but what I would say to that is, okay, but you're writing the show, you're making it. Take the events of the first 3 games and turn them into compelling stories. It's like, I get that. I realize that that's probably harder to do, but do it. If you're adapting God of War, it's like, adapt God of War. I don't know. It's like if in 50 years they decided they wanted to remake Star Wars, and they were like, we're just gonna start at episode 9. It's like, what? Are you even remaking Star Wars at that point? So I don't know. I get why they would want to do this, but it's just weird to me to just not do the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. We'll see what comes of that. All right, next up, we have Norman Reedus joining the John Wick spinoff, The Ballerina. So, this is the Anna de Armas-led John Wick spinoff. We don't really know anything about it. I guess The Ballerina kind of insinuates that it's going to follow, like, I guess Anna de Armas is going to be one of the people from that ballerina school that we saw in one of the John Wick movies. I don't even remember which one. And Norman Reedus is going to be in it. Not much to say other than Norman Reedus. He's a cool guy. I like him a lot. Kind of fell off The Walking Dead, but really liked him on The Walking Dead. So, yeah, I'm pretty pumped to see this, or to see him in it. All right, next up. Gotham Knights and Superman and Lois have their premiere dates. Now, the main reason why I'm talking about this is because it seems to me that the Gotham set rookie from Berlanti Production, which will bow at 9 p.m. Tuesday, March 14th, right after the 8 p.m. Season 3 debut of Superman and Lois, starring Tyler Hoechlin and Elizabeth Tulloch, will be, and I believe this to be the case, maybe I'm going to be wrong. I believe these will be the last seasons of DC content on the CW. I mean, I we've been seeing things get canceled. We haven't seen a ton of new stuff being put in production. The CW was recently sold off. I don't think that we're gonna see more DC content at the CW. And we're gonna get into some stuff later, but DC's changing in a major way. So I think this is gonna be it for the CW. I mean, not to mention that Gotham Knights looks terrible, so I don't even see that getting past the first season anyway. I mean, maybe it's amazing, who knows? But yeah, the one bummer is that I do quite enjoy Superman and Lois. I haven't actually finished season 2. I kind of fell off of that. I mean, to be honest, the season 2 of Superman and Lois is not nearly as good as the first season. Still enjoyable, but not nearly as good as the first season. So who knows if that even has much of a future? If that would have had much of a future, anyways. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that though. All right, next up, we have a bit of a weird story. Donald Glover to star in produce Spider-Man movie based on villain Hypno Hustler. Okay. So it says here that I guess we'll read the description of the character. Created by Bill Mantlo, the writer who also created Rocket Raccoon, and artist Frank Springer, Hypno Hustler was very much a product of the disco music scene when he first appeared in Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 24 in 1978. His real name was Antoine Delsoin, the leader of a band called the Mercy Killers, and used hypnosis technology in his instruments on his audience in order to rob them. Hypno Hustler. So here's the thing. The character sounds ridiculous, kind of in a fun way, but let me get to my problem here with just what Sony's doing in general. Okay, so it says here, Hypno Hustler is not considered one of Spider-Man's top villains. In fact, he regularly shows up on worst villains lists. But sources say Glover sparked to the musical aspect of the character, and the fact that he has less Marvel canon baggage, freeing him to greater interpretations. So, it seems to me that this is another El Muerto situation. So, if you remember with the El Muerto situation, what happened was Sony wanted Bad Bunny to be in one of their Spider-Man movies. And they basically just told Bad Bunny, hey, go pick a character and we'll make the movie. And Bad Bunny, I guess, just Googled Hispanic Spider-Man villains, and he found El Muerto. And Sony was like, sure, Bad Bunny, we'll make El Muerto. And it seems like the same thing is happening here. Where, like, I mean, they're not as explicit with what happened here. Maybe Sony approached Donald Glover. They wanted him to do something. Maybe Donald Glover pitched this to Sony, but Sony doesn't seem to have a plan for their Spider-Man universe. It seems like they're just making stuff and then trying to make them connect with one another afterwards. Because it doesn't seem like Sony was like, hey, we really want to incorporate Hypno Man, or what was his name? Or Hypno Hustler into our cinematic universe. Who can we get to play him? Oh, Donald Glover. Maybe we can even get him to direct and produce. It seems like Donald Glover was like, hey, can I make a Hypno Hustler movie? And Sony's like, sure. So, that's my problem, right? Like, I really like Donald Glover, and I actually really like him as a creative as well as an actor. But what is the Sony Spider-Man universe? What even is it? What is their plan? Do they have a plan? Like, what? Like, that after credit scene of Morbius is one of the most pathetic attempts at teasing some kind of universe that I've ever seen. It might be the most pathetic. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was watching with that whole Michael Keaton thing. insane. And Hypno Hustler? You're making Hypno Hustler because Donald Glover wants to do it. I don't know. We'll see what comes from this. I mean, listen. I like Donald Glover, so I'm interested in this movie just from the standpoint of yeah, sure, I'll watch a Donald Glover movie. But yeah, this just really confirms for me that Sony has no plan and they have no idea what they're doing with their Spider-Man properties. All right, let's move on to the next story. Death Stranding film adaptation in the works from Kojima Productions. So yeah, so this is so it looks like Kojima Productions is doing this with Hammerstone Studios to develop and produce the film. So yeah, it seems like Kojima himself is going to be heavily involved in this. And what's interesting about this article is that it says this will be the first feature from Kojima Productions, and it will introduce new elements and characters into the Death Stranding world. So it says here, the title of it, that there's a Death Stranding film adaptation in the works, but this kind of indicates to me that it might not be like a one-for-one adaptation like of the game, but it might be a movie set in the world of Death Stranding, which I think makes sense because I mean, if Kojima's doing it himself, he might not want to just do the same thing again. But he probably would want to use it to flesh out the world a bit more. So yeah, I guess I'm interested in this. I mean, I've not played Death Stranding. It's one that I kind of want to get to, but I'm also not a Kojima fan because I've never played Metal Gear Solid or anything like that. But the game just looks weird, but it looks interesting. And and every time you watch one of those trailers, I mean, it's visually striking. You have to say that at least. Especially like the Death Stranding 2 trailer that we saw at the Game Awards, where like the end of it with that like the villain character with like this really weird mask and he's like playing the guitar. It just looks so interesting. Like I really do feel like this could be like a really cool movie. So yeah, we'll see what comes from this though. Interesting that it might not be like a pure adaptation of the game. Next up, we have some Five Nights at Freddy's movie casting. Says here, we got Josh Hutcherson and Matthew Lillard who will be playing in this movie. It says here that the characters they are playing are not being specified. Production on the film is set to begin in February in New Orleans. So, not much to say about this. I mean, yeah, these actors are fine enough, but it's just interesting that more development continues to happen with this movie. This is just one of those movies that has been in development hell for years, and I've kind of given up on it even coming out. But they're saying it's going to start production in New Orleans. We're hearing about casting. We've seen that the Jim Henson Company is like actively working on animatronics for it. So this might end up being a thing. We shall see. All right. Next up, looks like Dune Chapter 2 has wrapped filming. This comes from Timothée Chalamet's Instagram, where he's with his dad here, and Dune 2 has wrapped. So, yeah, I mean, that's cool for Dune fans. I'm not really a Dune fan. Didn't. Here's the thing about that first Dune movie. I feel like that is a movie for people who read the books. I mean, I could just be an idiot. I acknowledge that. I mean, I definitely am an idiot, but I just had no idea what was going on in that movie. I was so I couldn't get attached to any of the characters. I was like, bro, like I didn't feel anything when Jason Momoa died. I didn't feel anything when Moon Knight actor Oscar Isaac died. I didn't understand really the world or what they were trying to say. I just didn't understand Dune, but a lot of people love it. And happy for you guys, because the second one has wrapped filming. All right, next up. Henry Cavill. We will get to Henry Cavill news later, other Henry Cavill news. But for now, Henry Cavill is going to star in and executive produce a Warhammer 40K franchise for Amazon. So, it says here, Cavill will star in and executive produce the franchise for Amazon Prime Video, which acquired the global rights to the IP from Games Workshop. The agreement includes the Warhammer 40K rights across film, TV, and more, making it the first major acquisition of its kind for Amazon Studios. So, this seems like to me that Amazon is taking over Warhammer to do movies and TV and probably the games as well. I'm not actually sure about that one. Warhammer is just another one of those franchises that I don't know anything about. I only know them as that one franchise that always shows up at in video game presentations. Like whenever I'm watching like the Game Awards or like E3 or like an E3 showcase, there's always a Warhammer trailer, and I'm like, I don't really understand what I'm looking at, but it's here. So yeah, listen. You know what this tells me actually? A lot of people assumed that Henry Cavill left The Witcher in order to do Superman. I never bought that because actors do multiple projects. They juggle a bunch of projects at once. I think he probably could have done Superman and done The Witcher at the same time. This, on the other hand, Henry Cavill being an executive producer on Warhammer when it comes to movies and TV and probably starring in these things as well. Yeah, I could see him not being able to do Superman and The Witcher and this Warhammer thing. So, honestly, I think this gives us a bit more insight as to why exactly Henry Cavill decided to, leave The Witcher. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll be excited to see what comes of this. I doubt I'll ever be able to get into like the tabletop role-playing games and like painting the figures or whatever. This is not really my jam. But I don't know, if we get some cool movies, I'll check them out. Yeah, from what I understand, the lore of Warhammer is like incredibly deep. Okay, what do we have next here? Oh, okay, we have a pretty interesting story here. Apparently, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, apparently his pants are on fire. It looks like Warner Brothers execs are claiming that Dwayne Johnson leaked bad Black Adam profit info. Okay, so let's just read through this. Executives at Warner Brothers reportedly claimed that Dwayne Johnson leaked inaccurate information about the profits of Black Adam. According to Puck's Matt Belloni, several Warner's executives believe that Teen Dwayne Johnson leaked information to Deadline about the profitability of Black Adam as a way to counter previous reports that the DC film would lose the studio between $50 and $100 million. Belloni wrote that the supposedly leaked report was filled with false assumptions and stated that in the long term, nearly all movies of this size will ultimately pencil out after every window is exhausted over years and years. Okay, so yeah, I remember we talked about this before. I don't remember if it was last week or because I don't know. I actually don't know if I talked about this on the show, but that was a weird situation where like there were multiple conflicting reports talking about the profitability of Black Adam. You had like the Hollywood Reporter being like, "Oh no, it bombed," and then you had Deadline saying, "Actually, it didn't bomb." Either way you slice it, and it seems now we got another guy from the Puck or whatever saying, "Oh, the insiders are saying that Dwayne Johnson leaked bad info." Either way you slice it, it was a disappointing result for the movie. Let me just look up the box office real quick. Probably should have had this on hand, but sorry, I'm looking at Box Office Mojo. Okay, worldwide as of right now, the movie has made $389 million worldwide. That's not great. Hold on 1 second. I need to reset my camera. Still here. Do not fear. Okay. That's a disappointing result. Okay? And there's just no way to slice it. Whether it lost money or whether it made a little bit of money, it's a disappointing result. And yeah, it's it is a stain on Dwayne Johnson's career. So honestly, believe whatever you want when it comes to the profitability. I'm not going to sit here and break down the math and all that. In my opinion, I think it's probably somewhere in the middle where, like, yeah, it didn't like bomb horrendously or anything like that, my guess is, but it also didn't make a ton of money either. So we'll get into more of this later on in the show. But for now, that is the case with Black Adam. Okay, now let's get into the juicy drama that you're all here for. And we're going to go through a series of tweets. So, this all begins with one Patty Jenkins. She put out this tweet here with an image of a whole essay that she wrote in regards to some of the reports that we did talk about last week, talking about how people were kind of insinuating that Patty Jenkins left Wonder Woman because she, didn't want to play ball and she didn't want to like change the movie based on feedback that she got. And Patty Jenkins is clapping back at the haters. Okay, so she wrote this here. Sigh. She opens it up like a YouTuber apology. I've actually never seen this. It's like, this isn't even a video where like a YouTuber's like, she writes it out. Sigh. I'm not one to talk about private career matters, but I will not allow inaccuracies to continue. Hold on, let me drink some water. Here are the facts. I originally left Rogue Squadron. Oh yeah, they were talking about Rogue Squadron as well, that wasn't happening. I originally left Rogue Squadron after a long and productive development process when it became clear it couldn't happen soon enough, and I did not want to delay Wonder Woman 3 any further. When I did, Lucasfilm asked me to consider coming back to Rogue Squadron after Wonder Woman 3, which I was honored to do so. So I agreed. They made a new deal with me. In fact, I'm still on it, and that project has been in active development ever since. I don't know if it will happen or not. We never do until the development process is complete, but I look forward to its potential ahead. So I guess that's one pretty big piece of news here, that Patty Jenkins is claiming that Rogue Squadron is still in active development. I have no faith that Disney will manage to make a Star Wars movie at this point. Just way too many of them have just been announced and not come to fruition. So I will believe that Rogue Squadron is happening when I'm in the theater to watch it. And like when I see the opening crawl of Rogue Squadron, that's when I'll believe that it's actually happening. But as of right now, sure, Patty Jenkins, you're still making Rogue Squadron. So, okay. Then we move on to the Wonder Woman 3 stuff. When there started being backlash about Wonder Woman 3 not happening, the attractive clickbait false story that it was me that killed it or walked away started to spread. This is simply not true. I never walked away. I was open to considering anything asked of me. It was my understanding there was nothing I could do to move anything forward at this time. DC is obviously buried in changes they are having to make, so I understand these decisions are difficult right now. So she's saying, I never walked away from Wonder Woman. They just, she didn't explicitly say this, but they just didn't want me. And I think that is going to make sense when we get into the next story, or I guess I can just say now. Yeah, it seems like DC or James Gunn is wanting to reboot the DCEU. And it makes sense that, yeah, you're going to get fresh talent and you're not just going to, stick with the old thing. It makes sense, and we'll get to that later. So we'll read on here. I do not want what has been a beautiful journey with Wonder Woman to land on a negative note. I have loved and been so honored to be the person who got to make these last two Wonder Woman films. She's an incredible character. Living in and around her values makes one a better person every day. I wish her and her legacy an amazing future ahead, with or without me. Walking side by side with Linda Carter, an absolute legend, a beacon of goodness and light, has been a thrill. It's a lot of stuff like, I love we're working on this. Gal Gadot, she's so wonderful. Oh, thank you to the fans, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's basically it. Patty Jenkins, according to her, did not walk away from Wonder Woman. Like a lot of people reported. And I understand why she would want to do this. Like, yeah, the impression that a lot of people got from those articles were that Patty Jenkins was, I am Patty Jenkins, and I have my creative vision, and I will not budge, for my script is the only one that I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And apparently that's not the case. Apparently she was very professional about it all. They just, James Gunn just didn't want to work with her. And, James Gunn kind of backs up this here. In response to this, I can attest that all of Peter and my interactions with you were only pleasant and professional. So it seems like James Gunn wants the record to stand that there's no bad blood between the two of them. So yeah, I think it's, I think it's understandable that that Patty Jenkins puts this out. I like, some people have been saying, oh, this is unprofessional. Oh, you're airing dirty laundry. I don't think that's the case. I think that there was some information that was reported that Patty Jenkins deems as inaccurate and that paints her in a bad light and, kind of tarnishes her reputation in some way, and she wanted to speak out against it. So I think it's completely understandable. I don't think she's throwing anybody under the bus here. She's not talking bad about the studio or James Gunn or anybody. So now let's get into the big thing here. Okay. Oh wait, no, this is not the big thing yet. Okay, so here's a tweet here where James Gunn is celebrating the Superman movie. Wonderful. Look, Superman premiered 44 years ago today. And then somebody asked James, hey James, please tell us if we are going to see a Superman. We've been starved of the greatest comic book character on the big screen for ages. James Gunn replies, yes, of course. Superman is a huge priority, if not the biggest priority. So this right here is signaling a major change of how DC treats the DCEU, where, for a long time now, the old regime at Warner Brothers just was not really paying much attention to Superman. And James Gunn it seems his biggest priority, as he's saying, is to change that Superman is the central figure of his DC universe. And then someone jokingly asks him what about the almighty Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern? And then James Gunn writes, that's not a priority for me, and even much less of one for at Van City Reynolds. But then somebody asks him, James, what about Green Lantern content? He also says imported. So right there, he's basically confirming that we are going to see Green Lantern in some type of way in his DC universe. Will it end up being that HBO Max Green Lantern show that's been in development for like 86 years at this point? I don't know. Because James Gunn does say that, the movies and the TV shows and the video games are all going to be interconnected. So, I mean, it could be, but I don't know. I feel like James Gunn is probably going to want to do Green Lantern on the big screen, just because I don't even know how you do like a Green Lantern movie on TV, unless it was an Earth-based Green Lantern show, which is not very interesting to me, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but we are getting Green Lantern in some capacity. Okay, we are not yet. This next thing is going to be a tease of the big story, but it is not yet the big story. So this guy, the Den of Nerds, I don't know who this person is, but he seems, I guess I think he's like a YouTuber. Yeah, I think he's like a YouTuber. He says, James Gunn does not like Henry Cavill. And someone asks, at James Gunn, care to debunk this one? And James Gunn is like, sure, false. And the guy says back to him, even more people have reached out to me since you said this to tell me you really don't like him. all of my many sources in the know is telling me about your opinion about Henry Cavill. Just saying what I heard. And then James Gunn replies back, so weird. You seemed so plugged in. Anyway, I just had 40 people reach out to me to say you just got kicked out of your mom's basement. So sorry, man. So basically James Gunn saying, bro, you don't know anything about me. Like, what are you talking about? So this is James Gunn, asserting that that him and James and Henry Cavill, we're cool. We're cool dudes, you know. No foul play between me and Henry Cavill here. That is until James Gunn loaded up. Hold on, wait. We're not yet. We're not there yet. We are not there yet. There's more. Sorry, I keep on forgetting. I keep on jumping the gun, so to say, before we get to the big topic. No, here is actually a pretty big thing to note. So there's a Variety article that didn't come out and say that that James Gunn and Peter Safran are exploring, potentially making their DC universe be set in the Matt Reeves Batman universe. It just says that it didn't come out and say that that's going to happen, but it just says that they're exploring the possibility, which doesn't really mean anything. But James Gunn decided to confirm, the tweet says, "There are few good reporters I love more than at Adam B. Very, the guy who wrote that article. Truly a good guy, but in this case, he needs to get a new source as this is entirely untrue." So, yeah, basically, he's confirming that under no circumstance will the DC universe connect to the Matt Reeves Batman universe, which I think is good. The Batman was brilliant. I absolutely adore Matt Reeves, and I just want them to let him do his thing over there. Don't mess with it. Don't touch it. Just let him do his thing. So I, for one, am very relieved to hear this, that's not something that they're even considering. So now, so Matt Reeves, cool with Henry Cavill, cool with Matt Reeves, or so we thought. For James Gunn has been loading the barrel with kryptonite bullets to shoot down the Man of Steel. For let us read this tweet thread. "Peter and I have a DC slate ready to go, which we couldn't be more over the moon about." So they have their slate ready. They know what they're doing. I think they've said before that they were working on a 10-year plan. So it seems like they know what they want to do for the next 10 years. So, but continuing. "We'll be able to share some exciting information about our first projects at the beginning of the new year. Among those on the slate is Superman. In the initial stages, our story will be focusing on an earlier part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. And after that happened, so many people with hashtag restore the Snyderverse in their bios, with Henry Cavill Superman as their avatars. They all heard the signal, and they were drawn to their laptops to be like, no, fire James Gunn. And here's the thing. My take on this whole thing. You know what? Actually, let's just hold on. Okay, let me see how I want to go about this. Okay, well, let's get through all the information. Okay, someone asked them, being part of the slate, I assume it's a movie. James Gunn confirms that yes, it is a movie. Someone asks him, are you writing/directing? James Gunn says that I am writing and have been for a while. We don't know who's directing yet, so he's writing it. And he also confirms, someone asks him, please tell me this isn't an origin movie. And James Gunn says, no way. So, first of all, before we get into the Henry Cavill thing, because obviously that's going to be the biggest thing here, I just want to say, just looking at that news here, James Gunn writing a Superman movie, that does excite me. Now, a lot of people are assuming that James Gunn is going to make a Superman movie in the vein of the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker with the zany, raunchy humor. I don't think he's going to do that. I mean, I don't see him doing that. I think he knows that Superman needs to be treated properly and that he needs to... I think he knows that he just needs to make a good Superman movie. I could be wrong. I don't see him doing that. And also, he says he doesn't know who's directing it yet. I think James Gunn is directing this. Like, this is obviously the most important movie that they're making. They have to nail Superman, I think, for this DC universe to really work. I don't see him handing that responsibility off to somebody unless he manages to coerce like Christopher Nolan or like Steven Spielberg or like somebody like amazing to come in and direct it. I think he's doing it himself. And yeah, they say that it's not an origin movie, which yeah is good. Now, interestingly enough, oh man, I didn't say that there was an article that did confirm that it's gonna be a movie about the earlier days of Superman, but he's already going to be established and he's already going to be working at the Daily Planet. So it isn't an origin movie, and I think that's okay. You know what? Let's read Henry Cavill's response. Okay. I have just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October, prior to their hire, this news isn't the easiest. But that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved with the new universe that best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. For those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember, Superman is still around. Everything he stands for still exists, and blah, 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 blah. So, yep, Henry Cavill is basically saying, yep, kind of sucks, but such is the way of life. And, he's very diplomatic, wishes the best for the universe. Okay, let me give my take on this. This is absolutely a valid way of going about this. This is absolutely a valid way of setting up your universe. Whether you love Henry Cavill, whether you love Zack Snyder, whether you hate Henry Cavill, whether you hate Zack Snyder, whether you love this current era of the DCEU, whether you hate this current era of the DCEU, there is one thing that I think we can all agree on. It's a mess. It is. It's been inconsistent. The box office has just been wild and all over the place. It has not been successful. It's a mess. And I think that we can admit that if somebody's going to come in and try to fix it, a valid option is to just do a complete resetting of it all. And if you're going to do a reboot, and this is me, don't half-ass it. Completely reboot it. Don't do a reboot but still have Henry Cavill there. Don't do a reboot but still have Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot there, as these characters. Do a complete reboot. Start fresh. Because, and here's the thing, okay, a lot of you out there love Henry Cavill as Superman. The truth is that the box office has not told us that general audiences love Henry Cavill as Superman. Man of Steel made like $600 million at the box office. Not bad. Definitely better than Black Adam. But not a monumental success that's demanding more Henry Cavill Superman. Batman v Superman, a movie that should have easily crossed $1 billion, flirted with $2 billion, made $800 million. That's not good. And again, not terrible. The movie didn't bomb or anything. Made more money than Black Adam. But it's not the kind of money that's demanding more Henry Cavill Superman. Justice League, same thing. That movie petered out at like $600 million. The DC's version of the Avengers didn't even make $1 billion. So, again, not something that's demanding more Henry Cavill. Let's look at Black Adam. One of the marketing strategies that they did was confirming and teasing the return of Henry Cavill Superman get ready, everybody. All you guys that love Henry Cavill Superman, you're all going to come out and you're going to support Black Adam. Now, it was only a cameo, but even in the opening weekend, before people knew the extent of his role, the movie only made like $60 million in its opening weekend. By the way, when you look at Spider-Man No Way Home, they never confirmed that, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were coming back. They never confirmed it. They never even showed them in the trailers. Now, we saw the villains there and all that, but they never confirmed it. So, rumors of those guys coming back, internet chatter of those guys coming back, drove that movie to like an insane over $200 million opening weekend. Henry Cavill does not have that pull. So this idea that you can't do Superman without Henry Cavill, I'm sorry, but general audiences do not love Henry Cavill as Superman as much as a lot of you vocal minority on the internet do. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that any of this is Henry Cavill's fault. It's not. In reality, it's like Zack Snyder's fault and, Warner Brothers' fault for not making movies that connected with the general audiences. But the unfortunate reality is that Henry Cavill is the face of this DCEU that people aren't connecting with. I mean, it just is the case. Like, I think a lot of general audiences are just at the point where they just don't like DC. They don't like what they've done with these characters. And when people see Henry Cavill Superman, they see this iteration of the DCEU that they don't like. So I just think it makes sense from a creative point of view to get rid of all the baggage. It makes sense from a financial point of view to get rid of all the baggage, to just reboot, start fresh, try again. And I see a lot of people saying things like, oh, Henry Cavill is being disrespected here. And no, he's not. Henry Cavill, he doesn't have a right to play Superman. Okay? He was hired to do work, and he got paid for his work, and now they no longer want him. Yes, is it kind of shitty that they had him go out and, like, make the Instagram post of, like, oh, okay, guys, I'm back at Superman, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, I'll give you that. But that wasn't even James Gunn's fault. That was the previous guys next to him who, for whatever reason, before they had their main guy in charge, before they had James Gunn and Peter Safran there to make a plan, they just like, oh yeah, no, sure, we'll do Henry Cavill as Superman without, like, knowing what your final end game was going to be. That's on those guys' fault. That's like David Zaslav's fault. It's not James Gunn's fault. All I'm saying is that it is totally fair for James Gunn to come in, make his plan, and do what he thinks is best for that plan. In no way is he disrespecting Henry Cavill. In fact, he sat down with Henry Cavill in person and spoke to him man to man. I would argue that's very respectful. So, yeah, I get it. Okay, a lot of you guys love Henry Cavill. And I'll just be honest. I've never loved Henry Cavill as Superman. I don't dislike him. I think he's a good actor. I think he's fine. But in my opinion, he's never owned the role like Tony or like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, or like Heath Ledger as Joker, or even like Chris Evans as Captain America, where it's like, I feel like those guys just completely embodied those characters, and like it's hard for me to like imagine somebody else coming in. I just don't feel that way about Henry Cavill, and to be honest with you, I don't think general audiences feel that way either. So I think it's going to be fine. We've been through this before. People were like, oh, nobody's going to support the Batman without Ben Affleck. Yes, they did. Robert Pattinson did a phenomenal job. I'm sure whoever comes in will also do a good job to play Superman. It's going to be fine, guys. Don't worry. And hey, Henry Cavill's got Warhammer 40K or whatever, so go watch that, I guess, if you're a Henry Cavill stan. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's actually. I want to get to something here that I think is way more interesting than Henry Cavill not coming back. Ben Affleck is coming back, except not to play Batman, but to direct a movie. So, in the same tweet thread, somebody asked James Gunn, could at Ben Affleck direct? James Gunn says, met with Ben yesterday precisely because he wants to direct and we want him to direct. We just have to find the right project. My bad, guys. I had to deal with something real quick. Nothing serious. Don't worry. But yes, I'm back now. Um, okay, so yeah, Ben Affleck is gonna direct a DC movie, and to me, that is way more interesting and than Henry Cavill not coming back to direct, uh, or to coming back to play Superman. Um, I what could he direct? I don't know. I mean, I do just judging by his past work, I do think it'll be something set in like an urban environment, like in a city. So, I mean, hey, he does have that Batman script that is apparently very good that he was going to direct and star in. Maybe he comes in, rejiggers that script to make it fit in James Gunn's DCU, get a new Batman in it. He's directing it, not starring it. Maybe we could get that Batman movie after all in some way or form. That actually, because I guess we'll skip ahead here, but another tweet, somebody says, let me see, yeah, so somebody, so I'm just skipping ahead here, but somebody asked James Gunn on Twitter, is Batman going to be a big part of the DCU going forward, or is he going to be kept for Matt Reeves only? James Gunn says he's a big part of the DC universe. So he doesn't confirm whether Batman is going to have movies or not, or if he's just going to be like a side character, like Hulk, But he is going to be a big part of the DC universe, and I think somebody else asked him something here. Oh no, this doesn't have anything to do with Batman. We'll get to this later, I guess. So if Batman is going to be in the DC universe, maybe just let Ben Affleck make that Batman movie. And I think if Ben Affleck makes a Batman movie that is a lot more like fantasy and sci-fi focused, and that is just on the complete other end of the spectrum of Matt Reeves' very gritty and realistic movie, I think it could work. Whoops. My camera. This is a disaster. I think it could work. I think you could do it. I think you would have two Batman franchises going on at once. But I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing. But I could also see Ben Affleck doing something like a Green Arrow, maybe, because that's obviously a lot more grounded, a lot more urban. Um, but I don't know. I honestly, listen. I love Ben Affleck as a director. Like as much as I love Ben Affleck as Batman, because I did think he was a great Batman. I honestly, the prospects of him directing a Batman movie makes me way more excited than him coming back to play Batman. Or even just directing a DC movie in general. I find that way more exciting than to see him come back and play the character. So yeah, that's very exciting, and we'll see what comes from that. Okay. And then another interesting thing. So this is a Hollywood Reporter article kind of going through the whole situation here. But there's this one paragraph that I think is interesting. The sunsetting of Cavill's time as Superman. Oh wait, hold on. Hold on, let me pull up the article. My bad. The sunsetting of Cavill's time as Superman was the clearest indication yet that Gunn and Safran are mounting a substantial overhaul of DC. A reboot that will cut significant, if not most, ties to the previous regimes that handled DC movies for Warner Brothers. So, I mean, this is the Hollywood Reporter basically stating that yes, it will be a reboot of the entire universe, not just Superman. And they also say Cavill also did shoot a cameo in The Flash, one of the 4 DC movies set to release in 2023. But sources say that the cameo, along with that of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, who also shot a cameo, is now being cut, given that the studio chose to not go forward with director Patty Jenkins' version of Wonder Woman 3. So, basically, I mean, this is just further confirming that James Gunn is rebooting the whole thing. He's, cutting ties from everything else. He's not wanting to tease projects that aren't going to happen. And again, man, I think it's fair. I do. Please, if you disagree, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear, all your arguments, but I just think it's a fair way of going about it. Sure, you could have tried to do patchwork on the current DCEU, try and see if you could salvage it, but I also just think it's fair to not want to bother. I think it's fair to just forego it all. So yeah. All right. Next up, okay, I guess is also just this bit here on Deadline. They're just basically confirming that. Yeah, it says here, according to sources, the departure was amicable and Cavill's choice. Oh, this is the departure from the Witcher show. At the time, it was Cavill's choice. At the time, he had signaled a potential return of Superman following his Black Adam cameo. Cavill has moved on and already has several new projects brewing, so he won't be away from the screen for long. I'm sorry, I keep on forgetting to pull up the article. Yeah, this article is basically here saying that Henry Cavill's not coming back to The Witcher. I saw a lot of funny memes of Netflix deactivating Liam Hemsworth's security card to get into the building, but yeah, Henry Cavill's not coming back to The Witcher. You're getting Liam Hemsworth. They've threatened you with Liam Hemsworth, and they are following through on that threat. So, it is what it is. Okay. Finally, to end off the show today, James Gunn did some clarifications here. So, someone asked him on Twitter, James Gunn, when you show us the movie coming out, will you explain why Cavill is getting recast? And James Gunn is like, as I said yesterday, it is very simple. He's a different age. And then somebody else comes in, you're doing another origin story, which no one wants. James Gunn says, also, as I said yesterday, I am definitely not doing an origin movie. And then the guy says, son, you said what it will be. Him meeting people for the first time is an origin story. James Gunn never said that. How much did Disney pay you to screw over the one thing DC had going for it? Then James Gunn says he's not meeting the major characters for the first time either. He's merely younger. So, yeah, basically James Gunn just reiterating that his Superman movie is not going to be an origin story. And that about wraps it for this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. Let me know what you think about all of that in the comments down below. I, for one, what can I say? I'm allowing myself to be optimistic about the future of the DC universe, about DC Studios. I really like James Gunn. I think he's a really good storyteller. At least he has a plan. You know, unlike the previous regime that was all reactionary and like, you know, they were kind of letting Zack Snyder do his thing, and then they were like, no, we got to pivot away from that. Oh no, Justice League didn't work. Let's pivot to something else. Blah, blah, blah. It seems like hopefully David Zaslav has a better head on his shoulders, right? Because, I mean, I think it speaks volumes that the Suicide Squad bombed at the box office, but David Zaslav still went, okay, that's sure, but James Gunn is still a really good storyteller. I still think he can be the head of DC Studios. I think we're at a point where I think they have a plan, and I think they're going to try to stick to it. And that at least I can appreciate. And that at least I can expect. Now, at the end of the day, these movies have to be good. James Gunn, you're making big moves. I see you. I appreciate you. This Superman movie has to be great. I mean, it has to be phenomenal. You cannot just make a good Superman movie. You have to make the best Superman movie that we've ever seen, you know, in order to win back all of these dozens of Snyder cultists. So, yeah, what can I say? I'm optimistic. But let me know what you think about any or all of these stories that we've talked about today. Are you at all, you know, do you have positive feelings about the future of DC, or do you think it's doomed? Do you hate James Gunn? Were you a part of the Fire James Gunn hashtag? Let me know all of your feelings in the comments down below, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.